Now, I'm sure most of you probably didn't care about Joe Biden passing out awards to people like they were the audience of the Oprah Winfrey Show yesterday. But, of course, I want to point out some things that you might have missed. 19 people were honored yesterday at the White House ceremony, including entertainers, athletes, philanthropists, terrorists, and former U.S. government officials. Keep in mind that this is before Joe Biden is scheduled to speak to America this coming Monday from the site of the tragic event that occurred a few days ago in New Orleans that has MK Ultra written all over it. Now, hold on, don't downplay this. He's not handing out just any award. He's awarding these 19 recipients the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian award the current president could give a civilian. Joe Biden robotically gave this award to people like William Sanford Nye, better known as Bill Nye, the science guy, for his work in science education. Okay? Then Michael J. Fox for his work as an iconic actor and his advocacy for people with the Parkinson's disease. And then Paul David Hewson, better known as Bono, who is the lead singer in the Irish rock band U2. Apparently, he does some activist work in debt relief in developing countries and not America. And he was also born and raised in Dublin, Ireland, making him not a U.S. citizen. Still, he somehow managed to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award, which is supposed to be for U.S. civilians.
We did it, Joe.
Joe Biden is following the footsteps of his buddy, Barry Soetoro, by awarding Bono the highest U.S. civilian honor in the United States. With this award, Bono became the first Irish recipient of this prestigious award, since former President of Ireland, Mary Robinson, received it in 2008 from Barry. According to the official X account of the NFL team, the Washington Commanders, co-owner of the team, Magic Johnson, was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, as well as the greatest actor ever, in my opinion, Denzel Washington. As we all know, you can't just invite Denzel to an award show and he not leave with anything.
I'm leaving here with something. You know what I mean? I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something.
Then things took a turn for the worse when Hillary Clinton was announced as a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom to a standing ovation.
What?
Hillary Rodham Clinton.
Some of you might be wondering, why is she receiving this award? What has she accomplished recently to deserve it? How was she nominated for this honor? Who is responsible for voting on the nominations? The president is responsible for awarding this medal to the people. It was said that the medal was given to any person who has been recommended to the president or has been selected by the president upon his own initiative. The medal was established in 1963 by then President John F. Kennedy. It superseded the Medal of Freedom, which President Harry S. Truman established in 1945 to honor civilian service. So, what civilian service did Hillary Clinton do recently that prompted the president to award her this medal? According to Executive Order 11085, the medal was created to recognize people who have made, quote, an especially meritorious contribution to 1, the security or national interests of the United States, or 2, world peace, or 3, cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. Let's use a method we're all familiar with from school, called the process of elimination, to figure this out. First, we can rule out the world peace because that's not her focus. Next, let's consider The part that says contributions to the security or national interests of the United States. This could apply to her, as she positions herself as an important figure that the public and politicians should pay attention to, mainly when the government takes actions that may not align with the interests of the government itself, or rather, the deep state. I provided an example of her actions related to the deep state's interests in October last year. To refresh your memory, I'll play a clip of that video right now, and then I'll continue soon after.
Produced by Dane Calloway and Tanisha Calloway. Watch this brand new documentary, Mother Rosa, right now at DaneMakeYouThink.com.
Democrats like Hillary Clinton are no amateurs to this form of unnecessary censorship, as she can be seen back in December of 2016 advocating for Congress to address these issues as if they are life-threatening to the public and the alleged democracy.
Let me just mention briefly one threat and innocent lives.
When the internet became more popular in the 1990s, it faced censorship. But social media companies and the public were protected by many laws at this time, like 47 U.S.C. 230, which provided immunity for online computer services and the content generated by their users. In 2016, the government found a loophole and began censoring websites and social media platforms, which was technically against the law. People were not allowed to freely express their opinions on political matters that didn't align with certain political parties' agendas and go viral on social media. News stations and the government soon recognized the need to adapt to the growing trend of using social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to connect with the public. People effectively captured public attention by using their phones as cameras and microphones to share their opinions on various topics. The news stations quickly started using social media platforms to reach the public. This gained attention because people could easily find their local news station's social media page and get updates on the news they cover. The stations hoped this would prevent people from turning to alternative news sources. With the help of Silicon Valley's social media giants that ruled the internet, they collected data from each user to allegedly provide a better experience while using their applications. But they were intentionally unlawfully censoring posts that the public would generally see based on their algorithms. This new form of censorship allowed the government and its news media stations to suppress the reach of a viral video, which they believed could sway public opinion on important topics. This censorship was not only about combating alternative news or foreign influence from countries that oppose particular politicians. The truth is that the government wanted full control over the narrative about specific politicians and their agendas. Watch this video as Hillary Clinton admits this truth and proposes removing 47 U.S.C. 230 as law just this past September.
We should be, in my view, repealing something called Section 230, which gave, platforms on the internet immunity because they were thought to be just pass-throughs, that they shouldn't be judged for the content that is posted. But we now know that that was an overly simple view, that if the platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
In addition to the fact that the CNN reporter looks as if he just saw a ghost, in September of this year, Hillary stated that she believes people who oppose their political views and policies should be jailed.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
And just in case you were wondering, Kamala Harris echoed these beliefs and wanted to regulate free speech as if it threatened democracy. This was at a time when Donald Trump, as president, was removed from social media sites like Twitter.
He has lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Here's former Democrat and now independent Robert F. Kennedy giving his take on censorship and free speech.
Are trying to say that Donald Trump hates democracy, that he wants to be a dictator, but they're all advocating now, openly advocating the censorship of our speech. And what they say is, well, we don't want to censor all speech, just the lies. If they want to determine what's the truth and what's a lie. And who was the biggest perpetrator of lies during the COVID epidemic? It was the government itself. They were the ones promoting disinformation and misinformation. And I saw this week Hillary Clinton, Tim Walz, and Kamala Harris all using the same talking point. That the next administration is going to get rid of misinformation and disinformation because that is not protected by the First Amendment. Well, it is. The First Amendment protects lies the same as it protects speech, truth. The First Amendment was not written to protect the kind of speech that we all want to hear. It was written for hard times, to protect the speech that nobody wants to hear. And that is the fundamental foundation stone of democracy, that everybody gets to say, to have their own truth. And as Louis Brandeis said, the remedy for bad speech is not censorship, never, because that turns to totalitarianism. The remedy for bad speech is more speech. And that's something that Donald J. Trump understands because he's been censored himself. And he understands it very acutely. He's seen the weaponization of the federal agencies to silence him, to destroy the electoral process as they did to me.
Brief final question. You liken yourself to Cassandra, the Greek mythological figure who could see the future and the prophecies, but was never believed. Putting that Cassandra hat on for the moment, but we're listening. What is something you see happening in the near future that we should be taking more seriously?
Well, I do think that the press needs a consistent the press that's not supporting Trump blatantly, very persistently, the press that's trying to be the press, be objective, be reporting the facts. The press needs a consistent narrative about the danger that Trump poses. Because, people may still look at the danger and say, I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I'm going to vote for him for X, Y, or Z. But okay. But at least people need to be woken up and given the facts about what he has done, is saying, and would do. And I anticipate that, something will happen in October, as it always does. The Russians, as I said earlier, are very active in this election. We know the Iranians are active as well. Chinese uses TikTok, or they certainly did against Biden and for Trump. I think they're a little less pro-Trump right now. So you look at where people get their information, and they get their information largely from social media. And so the campaign is doing the best job it can to combat that, combat both domestic and foreign false disinformation. But I anticipate there will be a full court press in October. The digital airwaves will be filled. And why does that matter? Because the press that is pro-Trump anyway, oftentimes stories are put on digitally that then are picked up by, let's say, at Fox and others. And then those stories our stories, so the mainstream press reports on them, and so that story then takes on a life of its own. There will be concerted efforts to distort and pervert Kamala Harris, who she is, what she stands for, what she's done. I mean, look, the crazy story about me running a child trafficking operation out of a basement of a pizzeria, don't laugh. Don't laugh. It was a huge story. And it got one young man in North Carolina to get in his car with his, assault rifle and drive up to liberate these non-existent children and shoot up a pizzeria in Washington, D.C. This is dangerous stuff. It starts online, often on the dark web. It migrates. It's picked up by the pro-Trump media. It's then reported on by everybody else, which makes sure it has about 100% coverage. And people believe it. So I don't know what it's going to be, but it will be something, and we'll have to work very, very hard to make sure that it is exposed as the lie that it is.
So Hillary Clinton said they need to control the narrative a lot more, especially during October. She threatened the public blatantly, saying that something is going to have to happen in October, right? I wonder what that could be.
And I will underscore, nothing that I was sent or that I sent was marked classified.
Secretary Clinton said, I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. Was that true?
There was classified material emailed.
I never sent nor received any information that was classified at the time it was sent and received.
Secretary Clinton said there was nothing marked classified on her emails, either sent or received. Was that true?
That's not true.
110 emails in 52 email chains have been determined by the owning agency to contain classified information at the time they were sent or received.
When I got to work as Secretary of State, I opted for convenience to use my personal email account because I thought it would be easier to carry just one device for my work and for my personal emails instead of two.
Secretary Clinton said she used just one device. Was that true?
She used multiple devices during the 4 years of her term as Secretary of State.
I didn't have to turn over anything. I chose to turn over 55,000 pages of my email, but we turned over everything that was work-related, every single thing.
Secretary Clinton said all work-related emails were returned to the State Department. Was that true?
No, we found work-related emails, thousands, that were not returned.
What, like with a cloth or something? Well, no.
You get a subpoena, and after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails, and then you acid wash them.
Everything he just said is absolutely false.
Secretary Clinton said neither she nor anyone else deleted work-related emails from her personal account. Was that true?
The email software was removed. That didn't remove the email content. The effect was that millions of email fragments ended up in the server's unused or slack space. This helped us recover work-related emails that were not among the 30,000 that were produced to State.
We went through a thorough process to identify all of my work-related emails and deliver them to the State Department.
Secretary Clinton said her lawyers read every one of the emails and were overly inclusive. Did her lawyers read the email content individually?
No.
Although there is evidence of potential violations of the statutes regarding the handling of classified information, our judgment is that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case.
Did Donald Trump obstruct justice as you read the incidences as Mueller lays them out?
Well, I think there's enough there that any other person who had engaged in those acts would certainly have been indicted.
Could this be why she was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom? Another portion of this description of the award recipients that fits her is where it says private endeavors. Now, it's pretty evident that she has been used many times to attempt to achieve goals set by the government, as she is their puppet in this sense. So the descriptions I just mentioned fit her well enough to explain why she would receive such an award. Interestingly, The award is called the Presidential Medal of Freedom. When people hear the word freedom, they immediately think of enslaved people being freed from servitude, or prisoners being freed due to time served in a detention center, right? Freedom is another way of saying entitlement or privilege. Do we all have this right? Freedom is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants without hindrance or restraint. So why would the president be awarding particular people a medal of freedom when freedom should be something that every civilian is naturally born with? The problem is the word civilian, which is commonly known as someone who is non-military or police. Some people would also associate the word civilian with citizen because they assume the role of an ordinary person without an authoritative ranking. In the 1828 edition of Webster's Dictionary of the English Language, the term civilian is defined as one who is skilled in Roman law, a professor or doctor of civil law. Similarly, the second edition of Black's Law Dictionary defines civilian as one who is skilled or knowledgeable in civil law, including a doctor, professor, or student of civil law. It also refers to a private citizen, distinct from members of the Army, Navy, or in England, the Church. Are any of you well versed in Roman law? Did they teach you Roman law during your school days? Why would Roman law be important to a citizen of America? Do you believe that citizen and civilian are the same? The etymology of the word civilian claims that it originated from the Latin word civitas, which is translated in English as
city.
Now, just in case you were wondering, the etymology of the word citizenship claims that it originated from the Latin word civitatula, which translates in English as
small town.
So when you refer to yourself as a citizen or a civilian, you are essentially identifying yourself as part of a city or small town. Since cities and small towns have owners, this means that you are inadvertently labeling yourself as property. I'll discuss this further in another video because I want to highlight the next person who received the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award from Joe Biden.
Stepping on behalf of George Soros is Alex Soros. The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to George Soros.
Is this nigga serious?
Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world. Educated in England, he settled in America as he became an investor and philanthropist, supporting key pillars of open societies, rights and justice, equity and equality, freedom now and in the future. His inspiring generosity reminds us all of our capacity and our obligation to stand up to the abuse of power and to be guardians of democracy and all people yearning to be free.
Now, here's a video from the Prime Minister of Hungary, which is his birthplace, exposing a document that George Soros published that proves that Soros is behind the global illegal migration invasion.
I do remember how Mr. George Soros published his plan in English in a Project Syndicate publication. It was done 2015, September 26. And he published a plan. He said that he is I'm quoting, he write the 6 components of my comprehensive plan. I just quote 2 or 3 points of that. First is, he said very clearly, 2015, that, quoting again, EU has to accept at least 1 million asylum seekers annually. That was the first point. Second, he said, adequate financing is critical. And he proposed to issue long-term euro bonds for financing the migration crisis and the migrants' social and welfare taking care when they arrive to the European Union. And another point which is very important for Hungary, which is involving the territory of Hungary directly into this program, he said that, quoting them, safe channels must be established for asylum seekers, starting with getting them from Greece and Italy to their destination countries, which means to bring them to Greece, to Hungary, and then have them to go to Austria. So don't forget that what we are speaking about is not an accidental stories, not a bulk of 10 years of accidental stories. It's a plan which is going on. It was written, it was published, it's known. So we are fighting again an organized gang called Empire of George Soros and NGOs who are just supporting everybody who is transgressing our legal system and our regulation and financing illegal activity against our nation. So this is why the story is not just about migration, but it's about how this European Union is working and how George Soros was able to captive the main positions inside many institutions of European Union, buying out MPs and other leaders, and in order to execute the plan which is written, and it's against all the Christian and nation-based political forces. It's against us. It's about how to change Europe and how to eliminate and push aside all the Christian, conservative, national-based political leaders and voters from the European Union decision-making bodies. So this is the migration about, not just about migration.
Well over 100 Americans have been murdered by the illegal Soros imported since Joe Biden took office. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He is a terrorist, and Joe Biden awarded him for his contributions, or rather, crimes against humanity.
I'm just here to make you think.
Yeah, DNA.
It's Dane Calloway. OCO, Freethinkers.